Some mornings quietly whisper that the day will be peaceful. This morning didn't whisper anything. It screamed. I walked out onto my porch at 7:12 a.m., holding a fresh cup of steaming coffee, expecting silence, and instead I found her. HOA Karen, bent over the driver's side door of my truck like she was defusing a nuclear device. Elbows out, shoulders tense, grunting under her breath. And stuck halfway into my lock, a shiny brass key. Her so-called master key. For a second, I genuinely thought I was still half asleep. But no, she was actually trying to unlock my truck. Before I could even open my mouth, she spun toward me with the same dramatic flair as someone catching their spouse cheating. All vehicles in this neighborhood must allow HOA emergency access, she declared, chin high, eyes narrowed. Your refusal is highly suspicious. Suspicious. Me, standing there in sweatpants, holding coffee, blinking at the human tornado currently violating my truck. I hadn't even said one word when she jammed the key again, failed miserably, gasped like she'd just discovered a government conspiracy, and whipped out her phone. And right in front of me, she dialed 911. Hello. Yes, I'd like to report a non-compliant male preventing a mandatory HOA safety inspection of his vehicle. She pointed at me like I was a wanted criminal. What she didn't know, the non-compliant male she was reporting was the county sheriff. Me. And oh boy, the moment she realized it later is a memory I'll treasure forever. Before we get too deep into this insanity, let me say this. Comment your city and local time below. And if you love insane real HOA stories, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, this one gets unbelievable. Now, back to Karen, my personal storm cloud. When I first moved into this quiet cul-de-sac, I honestly thought she was just an overly enthusiastic HOA president. A little intense, sure. Too many clipboards, definitely. But harmless? Maybe. I was wrong. Spectacularly wrong. To understand just how we got to the point where Karen tried to break into the sheriff's truck with a brass key, I need to take you back a couple years. My house sits right on the border of HOA jurisdiction. Close enough that Karen could see it. Far enough that she technically had zero authority over anything I owned. And that technicality ate her alive inside. The very first time she introduced herself, she didn't say hello, or welcome, or nice to meet you. She marched up my driveway like she was delivering a court subpoena, clipboard tucked under her arm, pen ready, eyes scanning my property like a tax auditor. She nodded toward my patrol cruiser and said, completely serious, law enforcement vehicles may cause unnecessary alarm. You'll need to park that elsewhere. I blinked, then blinked again. My cruiser is legally registered, legally parked, and legally exempt from your discomfort, I replied politely. Her smile tightened, a smile so forced it looked like it physically hurt her face. She scribbled something down on her clipboard, turned sharply, and walked off like she just filed paperwork for my future execution. And that was only the appetizer. A few days later, I found a piece of paper taped to my cruiser's windshield. It read, unauthorized government imagery visible from public view, $45 fine. Government imagery? She meant the sheriff's emblem on the door. I actually laughed out loud. At that time, I didn't know that was the first page of what would eventually become a 3-binder collection of Karen's nonsense. Every week, a new citation appeared. Not real citations, just paper she printed at home. Once, she tried to fine me for tire tracks in my own driveway after it rained. Her words? Unauthorized terrain modification. Another time, she accused me of visual intimidation because the morning sun reflected off my truck's chrome grille too brightly. But the absolute moment her villain arc fully activated was when she approached me one afternoon and said, the HOA requires a copy of your vehicle keys for emergency access. I stared at her. She stared back. Crickets chirped somewhere. Then I said, clearly and calmly, absolutely not. Her face did something I can only describe as buffering, like her brain froze, then rebooted, then pretended nothing happened. We'll revisit this, she sniffed. Looking back, that sentence should have told me everything. Revisit, in Karen language, means prepare for chaos. Fast forward to the morning, she tried her master key. After she called 911, and after Deputy Ray arrived, and after she learned the suspicious man she reported was the sheriff, she froze like a Windows XP loading screen. Then she spun around and stormed off in humiliation. But here's the thing about Karen. Humiliation doesn't stop her. It fuels her. The very next morning, chaos bloomed. Bright pink flyers plastered on every mailbox, every lamppost, every trash can. Glitter glue. All caps text. Cartoonish little stars doodled around the title. Urgent community action required. Stop the non-compliant vehicle. She'd written an entire manifesto targeting my truck. She claimed I was a community risk. She accused me of refusing HOA-approved vehicle safety protocols. She demanded a vote requiring every resident to provide their car keys to the HOA. She wanted a universal master key. My neighbor Mark knocked on my door, holding one of her flyers. "Is this about you?" he asked, sounding exhausted. "Apparently," I said. He sighed. "She fined me last week because my car is too red. She said it was visually aggressive." I wasn't surprised. Karen's version of reality had never matched the rest of the world's. Later that day, I found another notice under my windshield wiper. Parking violation, excessive vehicle presence, $65. In my own driveway. I added it to binder number 1. And then came her emergency HOA meeting, which someone secretly recorded and sent to me. I watched as she hosted what looked like a parody of a political rally. She had a pie chart showing my truck as the #1 cause of community instability, a blurry, low-angle photo of my vehicle circled in red, a slide titled Potential Threat Indicators listing size, color, reflectiveness, authority symbolism, owner noncompliance. She ended the presentation by declaring the neighborhood was in a driveway harmony crisis. The room was silent, probably because no one knew whether to laugh or hide. But Karen, she looked proud, triumphant. And the next morning, she escalated again. I opened my door and stared at 26 neon orange flags lining my driveway, like a ceremonial path of insanity leading straight to my truck. Each one carried the message. HOA claim pending. Vehicle access gate under review. She wanted to build a gate across property she didn't control. I stood there, holding one of Karen's neon orange flags in my hand like evidence from a crime scene, wondering if I had accidentally wandered into an alternate universe where logic didn't exist. The morning light hit those orange markers just right, making the entire driveway glow like a runway meant for landing small, angry aircrafts. All perfectly aligned, all installed on private property she didn't have an ounce of authority over. Karen had crossed a line. Actually, she'd vaulted over it, rolled twice, and built a monument on the other side. I took a slow breath and muttered, "She's gone full supervillain mode." Then, of course, came the sound. Clack, clack, clack. Her orthopedic sandals. Her battle drums. I didn't have to turn around and know she was marching down the street with the intensity of someone who believed the world's fate depended on whatever she had printed on her clipboard that morning. She reached the base of my driveway, chin lifted like she was about to give a State of the Union address. "Good morning," she said, her voice strained with fake politeness. "I'm sure it is," I replied, still holding her neon flag like a trophy. Her sunglasses glinted in the sunlight as she evaluated my expression. "I see you've discovered the preliminary markers. The HOA has initiated a vehicle access evaluation for community safety." I blinked. Slowly. "On my property." She waved a hand like I just asked the dumbest question on earth. "Property lines are fluid when safety is involved." "Fluid," I repeated, tasting the absurdity of the word. "Yes," she said proudly. "And as acting HOA president, I hold full authority to establish precautionary measures when a resident consistently displays noncompliance." She nodded toward my truck with a mix of disgust and triumph. "Your vehicle has a long history of defiance." I actually choked. "My truck is defiant." She crossed her arms. "It refused universal access." Universal access. To a truck. I let the silence hang. Because somewhere, deep in Karen's mind, she genuinely believed she had just said something logical. Finally, I pointed at the flags. "You put these here yourself." "Of course I did," she replied, chest puffed out. The board was unanimous. Unanimous. "Sure. That's interesting," I said, "because the board looked pretty fed up with you last time I saw them." Her smile faltered, then returned in a shaky, desperate way. "They were unanimous in spirit." Ah yes, spirit. Karen's favorite loophole. I stepped down the driveway until I stood right in front of her. Karen, this is private property. You're trespassing. And this, I waved the flag, has no legal standing. Her chin jerked upward. Not yet. That one sentence told me everything. She was planning something. Something big. Something stupid. Something very, very illegal. Karen hugged her clipboard tighter, like armor. The community deserves protection from rogue vehicles, she said. And yours has become a symbol of disorder. My truck. A symbol. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of her, standing triumphantly among the flags. She stiffened immediately. What are you doing? Documenting. Her facade cracked. Don't intimidate me. I'm not intimidating you. I'm taking evidence. Because you tried to break into my vehicle yesterday with a key you bought off Amazon. That was a lawful attempt at access, she snapped. You called 911 on me. You were suspicious. I was holding a cup of coffee. That's not the point, she hissed. Before she could spiral into another monologue, she turned sharply and stormed off, muttering something about community dangers and rogue silhouettes. I watched her go, shaking my head. But the day had just begun. That afternoon, returning from a grocery run, I saw something no homeowner ever expect to see in their driveway. A tow truck, parked dangerously close to my truck. Engine running. Driver holding a clipboard, looking massively confused. I parked, stepped out, and approached him. Everything okay? I asked. He looked up, then back at the paper in his hand, then back at me. She told me this vehicle was abandoned and needed removal. Some lady with a clipboard. Real intense. Said the truck hadn't moved in weeks. I drove it yesterday, I said. He winced. She also said the owner was refusing to comply with safety checks, he added awkwardly. I pointed to the sheriff's emblem on the driver door. I'm the owner. The man's soul left his body. Oh man, she didn't mention that. Of course she didn't. He shoved the paper into his pocket like it was radioactive. I'm leaving. Sorry, sir. Won't happen again. He climbed into the tow truck and left faster than I've seen most criminals run. I looked at my truck, the flags, the empty space where a tow truck had nearly abducted my vehicle, and I realized Karen wasn't spiraling. She was escalating. She wasn't just trying to control my truck. She wanted to create a narrative, one where I was the threat, one where she was the hero, one where her version of the HOA ruled everything and everyone. I'd seen this pattern before, 30 times in my career, maybe more. It always ends the same. The person pushing the narrative ends up cornered by their own lies. So that evening, I calmly removed every single neon flag from my driveway, one by one, methodically, quietly, undoing her imaginary empire with my bare hands. I gathered the flags into a pile and put them into a labeled evidence box inside my garage. Because I knew something with absolute certainty. Karen was not done. The master key incident was just her opening act. The flags were phase 2. The tow truck was phase 3. Whatever phase 4 was, it was coming. And I needed to be ready. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, I stepped outside with coffee, again, and froze. My truck was wearing a giant metal boot. A bright yellow wheel clamp locked onto its front tire like my truck was a misbehaving child at a medieval festival. A laminated tag hung from it. Release fee, $350 processing fee, $25 administrative fee, $15 total, $390. She'd impounded a sheriff's vehicle. I stared at it, then set my coffee down slowly. Behind me, clack, 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 her victory march. Well, she crowed triumphantly. Perhaps now you'll learn to respect community authority. I turned. You put a wheel clamp on my truck. It's not your truck, she snapped. It's a community-adjacent vehicle subject to oversight. I actually bit my lip to keep from laughing. This, I said carefully, is illegal. She tapped her clipboard. No, this is proactive enforcement. You immobilize law enforcement property. She raised an eyebrow. A vehicle used to intimidate residents. Frankly, you should thank me. Oh boy. Karen, I said, stepping closer. Remove the clamp. Absolutely not, she said proudly. You'll pay the release fee, just like everyone else. No one else has ever had a boot on their car. Because no one else is as non-compliant. Her voice cracked. She was seconds away from full meltdown. Karen, I tried again. Remove it. No, she insisted. We'll see what the board says. The board? I asked slowly. Yes, she said. They approve this. Across the street, my neighbor Jill peeked from behind her curtain and silently shook her head. No, they absolutely did not. Caught in her lie, Karen switched gears instantly. Well, they didn't oppose it, she said. That's not the same thing. It is in spirit, she declared confidently. Karen and her spirit laws. I took out my phone and snapped photos. She recoiled, horrified. What are you doing? Calling the police. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I dare. And I dialed the non-emergency line. Because if Karen wanted to escalate, she was about to learn what escalation really looks like. The phone had barely rung twice before dispatch picked up. I explained the situation calmly. Domestic neighborhood dispute, unlawful vehicle immobilization, potential property damage. And because it involved my truck and I was off duty, protocol said another deputy had to respond. Karen stood there frozen, jaw tight, eyes wild, one hand clutching her clipboard like it was her emotional support animal. You're weaponizing law enforcement, she shrieked. I pointed at the clamp. You put a boot on a sheriff's truck. A community truck, she corrected loudly, like volume would make her right. Within minutes, a familiar patrol cruiser rolled into view. Deputy Hernandez stepped out, took one look at the clamp on my truck, then gave me a look that said, "You gotta be kidding me. Not again." "Morning, Sheriff," he said under his breath, trying not to laugh. "Morning. Good luck," I replied. Karen practically launched herself toward him like a malfunctioning missile. "Officer, arrest him immediately." Hernandez blinked. "For what, ma'am?" He refused to follow HOA impoundment protocol. Hernandez lifted an eyebrow. "There is no HOA impoundment protocol." "There should be," she yelled, stabbing her clipboard into the air. "That's not how laws work," he said calmly. She pointed at the clamp with the fury of a Greek goddess cursing a mortal. "This vehicle is out of compliance." I stepped closer. "She tried her master key on my door yesterday." Hernandez sighed. "Ma'am, please tell me you did not try to unlock a sheriff's truck." "It is my duty to ensure harmony," she barked back. "Ma'am," he repeated, "did you personally place this clamp on his vehicle?" "I issued a lawful corrective action." Translation? Hernandez asked, expression flat. "I bought it online," she said proudly. "It comes in different colors. This is the premium version." Hernandez closed his eyes as if silently praying for patience. "Ma'am, you cannot immobilize a vehicle you do not own. This could be considered tampering." "Tampering? How dare you?" she screeched. "Yes," he said. "Vehicle interference." She gasped like she'd been slapped by God. "You dare accuse the acting HOA president of interference?" "No," I said, "he's stating the law." "This is oppression," she shouted. "Oppression of the HOA." At this point, half the neighborhood had come out to watch. People leaned over fences. Someone brought popcorn. Kids sat on the curb like they were watching Saturday morning cartoons. Hernandez began writing an official warning. "Ma'am, remove the clamp. Now." "No," she shouted. "Ma'am. No." "Ma'am," he repeated firmly. "If you don't remove it, we will." Her face twisted like she was swallowing battery acid. She stomped to the clamp, wrestled with the lock, and finally yanked it off with the fury of a medieval warrior tearing down a castle gate. Then she dragged the boot away, muttering something about rogue authority figures and rebellious tires. But the moment she disappeared into her house, Hernandez shook his head. "She's escalating." "I know," I said. He looked at the pile of flags, the clamp, the tow truck marks, and sighed. "We're going to need extra paperwork." For 2 days, Karen went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet you hear before a thunderstorm rips your roof off. I knew that silence. I'd seen it in criminals, in unstable people, in suspects building their next big move. And right on schedule, she emerged stronger than ever, with brochures. Glossy, colorful, ridiculous brochures titled, "The Great Vehicle Harmony Initiative." I stood there holding one like I'd just received an invitation to a cult meeting. Inside were bullet points. Actual bullet points. Mandatory HOA access keys for all cars, monthly driveway compliance inspections, fines for visually disruptive silhouettes, HOA-controlled parking rotations, penalties for unauthorized automotive aura. Yes, aura. My favorite part. A QR code for payment to something called the Bluff Vehicle Safety Fund. A fund that, when scanned, led straight to a PayPal account under Karen's name. I laughed so hard I had to put the brochure down to breathe. But Karen wasn't laughing. She was intensifying. That week alone, I received 13 new violations. They included parking too confidently, truck height exceeds comfort threshold, windows too transparent, paint color too authoritative, license plate numerically aggressive, shadow cast exceeds 4.5 feet, and my personal favorite, owner attitude non-compliant. Even my attitude got fined. I documented everything. Photos, dates, times, witnesses. My binders were turning into encyclopedias. After a while, even the neighbors started sharing their violations. She fined me because my headlights were too assertive. She fined me because my SUV felt rebellious. She fined me for insufficient wheel humility. Wheel humility. I nearly passed out laughing. But Karen wasn't slowing down. One quiet Wednesday morning, I came home from the grocery store and found something new blocking my driveway. A barricade. Not a real one. A plywood, spray-painted, zip-tied monstrosity reading, HOA parking zone, authorized vehicles only. It weighed about 8 pounds, maybe less. I lifted it with one hand, moved it to the side of the yard, and placed a sticky note on it. Nice decor. Wrong house. That afternoon, a city inspector knocked on my door, holding a clipboard and trying not to laugh. Got a call about an illegal parking structure, he said. Let me guess, I replied. Karen. Caller refused to identify herself, but I showed him the flimsy barricade. He snorted. No, this is not illegal. It's just sad. He took a photo for the city's report and left chuckling. Karen watched the entire exchange from across the street, arms folded, jaw tight, seething visibly. She didn't scream. She didn't rant. She didn't stomp over to confront us. She just stared. And honestly, that silent stare was far scarier than any meltdown she'd had. Because silence meant she was planning. And Karen planning meant we were all on borrowed time. That evening, a group of neighbors knocked on my door. 3 families, all looking tired, worried, stressed, and fed up. She fined me for washing my car too loudly, one said. She fined me because my sedan was emotionally disruptive, another complained. She threatened to impound my bicycle, the third whispered. A bicycle? Karen had gone from cars to bikes. It was spreading. We need your help, one of them said. The HOA board is done. We want to vote her out, but we need proof. Real evidence. Stuff she can't deny. I gestured toward my dining table where 3 fat binders sat like law textbooks. I have evidence. How much evidence? One asked cautiously. 3 volumes so far. Their eyes lit up like I'd handed them the Holy Grail. This could work. They whispered excitedly. We can finally get rid of her. Board meeting is Friday. Another added. We need you there. I'll be there. Because if Karen wanted to rule the neighborhood like a dictator, Friday was about to become her downfall. Friday arrived with the kind of tension you can feel in your teeth. All day, the neighborhood carried this strange, electric silence. Not peaceful, not calm. The kind of silence before a courtroom verdict, before a storm hits, before a match touches gasoline. People weren't mowing lawns. Cars weren't starting. Even dogs weren't barking. Everyone was waiting. At 6 p.m., the small, beige HOA community center flicked on its fluorescent lights, humming faintly like it knew something historic was about to happen inside. I walked in with 3 binders under my arm, evidence titled, Karen Incidents, Vol 1, 2, and 3. Neighbors followed behind me, like I was leading a parade of exhausted souls desperate for justice. Inside, the tension was thick enough to chew. Karen sat already positioned at the front table like a dictator on a throne, clipboard perfectly centered, lips pursed, shoulders pulled back. She looked confident, too confident. She must have believed she could spin whatever was coming. The rest of the HOA board sat beside her, slouched, defeated, looking like hostages forced to attend their own meeting. Karen tapped the microphone. Order, please, she announced dramatically. We are here to discuss dangerous noncompliance spreading through our once harmonious community. The room shifted uncomfortably. One of the board members, Douglas, a tired man who looked like he aged 30 years since becoming treasurer, raked a hand over his face. Karen continued. It has come to my attention that certain residents, she flicked her eyes at me with the subtlety of a brick to the head, have repeatedly threatened our safety by refusing vehicle access protocols. A neighbor in the back muttered loudly. You mean your made-up rules? Karen slammed her clipboard on the table, so hard everyone jumped. This is not up for debate. I stepped forward, placed my binders on the center table, and said evenly, Actually, it is. She glared at me like I'd violated some ancient sacred oath. This is not your turn to speak. I ignored her and flipped open binder number 1. The room leaned forward. Let's begin, I said calmly. With Exhibit A, Karen attempting to unlock my truck with a fake master key. A wave of suppressed laughter rolled through the room. Karen's hand twitched. That was a lawful entry attempt, she insisted, voice cracking. Douglas cleared his throat. No, Karen, it wasn't. Her smile twitched in denial. I continued flipping pages. Exhibit B, illegal tow truck order. Exhibit C, 38 fraudulent fines. Exhibit D, the driveway runway of neon flags. Exhibit E, the wheel clamp. The moment the picture of the clamp appeared, half the room gasped. Karen lifted her chin stubbornly. That clamp was necessary. His truck is hostile. It's a truck, not a wolf, someone whispered. Karen whipped her head toward the whisperer. Who said that? The room fell silent. I placed the clamp photos down slowly. Ma'am, you immobilized law enforcement property. You understand the seriousness of that. She crossed her arms like a rebellious child. I understand that someone had to do something. A neighbor, Martha, stood up, clutching her stack of violations. She fined me because my headlights were emotionally manipulative. Karen. Laughter burst out. Actual, uncontrolled laughter. Another stood. She told me my sedan was projecting arrogance. Another. She fined my 10-year-old for riding a bike too confidently. Then another. She told my husband his Ford truck had aggressive masculine energy. The room erupted. Karen slammed both palms on the table. Order. Order right now. But it was too late. She'd lost them. Every person in that room had felt the sting of her nonsense. Every person had a story. Every person finally had a voice. Douglas, exhausted, finally stood. Karen, he exhaled. This meeting was called by the residents to address your conduct. Her face twisted. What conduct? I've saved this community, she snapped. From what? Someone shouted. From chaos, she yelled. You are the chaos, 3 people shouted back. Her eye twitched violently. Sit, Douglas said firmly. No, she whispered, tremoring. Karen. No, she shouted, slamming her fist down. You all are ungrateful. I built this community. A neighbor leaned forward. You build a dictatorship. Karen pointed at him, shaking. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. None of you do. I have to maintain order, structure, stability. Otherwise, she jabbed her finger toward my truck photo. We become vulnerable to threats. Ma'am, I said cautiously, it's a truck. She spun to me, eyes blazing. You are the biggest threat of all. The room went silent. She inhaled sharply and launched into a rant so unhinged. It was almost impressive. I saw you, driving around, parking with confidence, disrespecting my authority, flaunting your cruiser like a king. And the neighbors, they look at you, they look at me. And who do they listen to? You. Always you. I am invisible in my own community. And in that moment, everything made sense. This wasn't about trucks, or rules, or keys, or boots. This was about control, power, her fragile ego, her need to be important. I softened my voice. Karen, this isn't about the HOA. This is about you not being listened to. She froze. For a second, her expression wavered. Sad, small, almost human. Then it hardened into steel. You think understanding me gives you power? She hissed. It gives me clarity, I replied. You have no right to speak to me like that. The room murmured. Douglas finally raised his hand. I call for a vote, he said, voice steady. A vote to remove Karen as HOA president. Karen gasped. You can't. Yes, we can, he said. The room waited. All in favor. Douglas asked. Hands shot up. Everywhere. A sea of hands. Every single person, young, old, tired, angry, defeated, raising their arm. Karen spun in place, eyes wide, shocked beyond comprehension. No, this is illegal. This is a coup. A conspiracy. Hands down, Douglas continued. All opposed. No hands. Not one. Douglas turned to her gently. Karen, you're removed. Her lips parted in disbelief. Her hand slowly dropped from her clipboard. Her breathing quickened, shallow and uneven. You can't, she whispered. You can't remove me. I am the HOA. Douglas shook his head sadly. Not anymore. Silence. You could have heard dust settle. Then, Karen snapped. She let out a scream so primal that half the room flinched. She grabbed her clipboard, raised it above her head, and threw it like a frisbee across the room. It hit a wall, cracked in half, and slid to the floor. She pointed at everyone with trembling hands. You'll regret this. All of you. This community will fall without me. You have no idea what you've done. Then she turned to me. And you. She spat, shaking. You think you've won? This isn't over. Not even close. She stormed toward the exit. But halfway there, she tripped over a folding chair, shrieked, kicked it, and stomped out of the building while the entire room watched in stunned silence. The door slammed. Hard. And just like that, she was gone. For the first time in months, the neighborhood finally took a collective breath. But deep inside, I knew something. Karen will be back. People like her don't just walk away. That was only the storm. The real aftermath was coming next. The night after the HOA meeting felt strangely calm. Too calm. People walked their dogs without looking over their shoulders. Kids rode their scooters without fear of fines. Cars sat peacefully in driveways, unjudged for their aura. It almost felt like the neighborhood itself exhaled for the first time in months. But my instincts were screaming something else. I've dealt with hundreds of unstable personalities in my career, and there's one thing they all have in common. They never accept defeat quietly. And Karen? Karen was built out of pure, concentrated refusal. So when she disappeared after the meeting, my gut told me things weren't over. Not by a long shot. Around 9:40 p.m., as I sat on my porch, I noticed her house's lights flickering on and off. Shadows pacing. Curtains moving. Unmistakable signs of someone spiraling. Then silence. A silence so absolute it made the hair on my arms stand up. I stayed alert. At 11:17 p.m., it happened. My motion sensor lights flashed on. Something moved across my driveway. Small. Fast. The unmistakable shape of a human crouching low. Then I heard it. The unmistakable metallic clink of a tool hitting my truck's wheel. I stood and walked forward. And there she was. Karen. On her knees. In the dark. Struggling to attach another wheel clamp to my truck. This time, a bigger one. Heavier. Industrial grade. Her hair wild. Her clothes wrinkled. Her glasses crooked. She wasn't the powerful HOA tyrant anymore. She looked unhinged. Step away from the truck, I said firmly. She screamed. A raw, desperate sound. No, you cannot control me. You cannot control this community. She shook the clamp like a cage she was trying to lock around a monster. I will restore order, she shrieked. Karen, I said carefully, you need to step back. She snapped her head toward me, eyes wide, pupils huge. You think you took my power? She howled. You think a vote means anything? I am order. I am the HOA. She pointed at the truck. This vehicle is a threat to everything. If I don't restrain it, we all suffer. My truck, a threat to civilization. Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. Hello, she shouted into the receiver. This is an emergency. The sheriff's vehicle is attacking the community. I blinked, then blinked again. She genuinely believed this. No, she yelled into the phone. I am not hallucinating. There's a rogue truck. It's hostile. Send everyone. She paused. No, not firefighters. They can't handle it. Send SWAT. I gently stepped forward. Karen, don't come closer, she screamed, backing up and pointing the clamp at me like a weapon. I will detain you, mice. She tripped over her own feet, stumbled backward, and fell flat on her back with a heavy thud. Her phone flew out of her hand and skidded across the concrete. She lay there blinking at the sky. Then she started crying. Not angry, not dramatic, just broken. I did everything right, she whispered. I followed all the rules. I made the rules. Why won't people listen? Her voice cracked in the darkness. And for the first time since this began, I saw the real truth. Karen wasn't evil. She was lost, lonely, desperate to feel important, and terrified of losing control. Sirens approached in the distance. Her eyes flicked toward the sound. She sat up fast, panic rising again. No, 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 no. They can't see me like this. But it was too late. 3 patrol cars pulled up. Lights flashing. Engines humming. Deputy Hernandez stepped out first, scanning the scene. Then he noticed the clamp on the ground. Not attached to the truck, but clutched in Karen's hands like a trophy she didn't earn. He sighed. Karen. She burst into screaming again. He did this. He made me look crazy. Karen, Hernandez said, voice calm but firm. You called 911. No, the truck called 911. Every officer froze. One of them whispered, did she just say the truck called 911? I stepped forward. She needs help. Karen pointed at me, sobbing. He manipulated the entire neighborhood. He planted evidence. He used his position to control everyone. Hernandez looked at me, then at her. Ma'am, you need to stand up. No, she cried. I won't be arrested. I did nothing wrong. You're not under arrest, he said gently. We're bringing you in for evaluation. No, she whispered, shaking. No, please don't take me away. I just wanted them to listen. Her voice cracked again. Soft, small. 2 officers helped her up gently. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just collapsed inside. As I guided her to the cruiser, she glanced at me one last time. Why couldn't you just follow the rules? She whispered. I didn't have an answer. The door closed. The cruiser pulled away, and the neighborhood, finally, felt free. The next morning, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Unanimous vote. Karen banned from all HOA activities. Her fines canceled. Her authority revoked permanently. Neighbors began rebuilding trust, fixing things she'd broken, removing stupid signs, laughing for the first time in months. As for me, I finally washed my truck without getting fined for aggressive water behavior. Feels good, but the story doesn't end there. A few weeks later, I received a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. Thank you for stopping me before I went too far. Okay, that was it. No threats. No attacks. Just a quiet acknowledgement that, beneath all the madness, she knew she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. After that, she moved to another town. Rumor has it she joined another HOA. Some say she's calmer now. Some say she's worse. But one thing's for sure. Wherever Karen goes, rules will tremble. Neighbors will hide. And trucks everywhere will pray they're not too confident. As for my neighborhood, we're fine now. Peaceful. Normal. Though every now and then, when the wind blows just right, I swear I can still hear faint echoes of her sandals. Clack, clack, clack. A reminder of the HOA president who went to war with a truck and lost.